I shouldn't have doubted the experts, but I did, and I just had about the worst possible crossover result that I could have expected, going from an SGC T206 card to a PSA T206 card. But there may be a silver lining with this crossover. But welcome back to my channel. My name is Chris, otherwise known on X, and Instagram is at CRT_sportscards. And if you want to learn more about the T206 set, hit that subscribe button so you are notified the minute my next T206 video gets released. So this story starts all the way back in August of 2023. This actually was my biggest collecting mistake in 2023. I won at the time 2 different Ray Dimmitt T206 polar bears from REA. I got a little overzealous and a little overconfident in the market of the cards, and I ended up winning both during their summer auction. One, of course, was this SGC one that I recently sold and talked about late last year. And then, of course, we were left with the one that I ended up keeping, was this SGC Authentic with the miscut label. And I kept that card over the one for a couple of different reasons. But number one, it just presented so much better than the SGC one did. And when you take a look at the card, it does have a couple of unique features. The first thing that stands out to you is going to be the top and bottom edges. They're very jagged, sawtooth-like when compared to the left and right side of the card. I don't think I've seen another T206 card like this from the top and bottom edges. And so I always thought that that was from a dull blade that cut that card on that particular day. And so seeing this card in an SGC label of authentic and miscut was probably pretty accurate, but I got greedy. I kept looking at this card. I kept asking others in the hobby, what would you do with this card? Because yes, it does say authentic miscut, but is there room for an actual numerical grade from PSA? And so I will not blame anyone for this decision, because at the end of the day, it was mine. I cracked the card out. I took it out of its SGC holder, and I said, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm going to send this to PSA. And had this card come back a PSA 3 with a miscut, qualifier on it, or a PSA 2 with a miscut qualifier, there would have been potential in my mind to sell this version, rebuy a lower grade version, and then use those funds to continue to fund my pursuit of the 520. And so I had gone back and forth on this decision for the past several months, but then last week, or 2 weeks ago now, when PSA announced their price increase on especially cards with that 5-day turnaround going from $250 to $300, I figured if I'm going to do this, I have to do it right now, because the last thing I want to do is spend another $50 to get this card graded and for the potentially to come back with maybe a worse label. But it wasn't to be. Some of you saw on Instagram me posting a story around the movement of the card through the PSA system. And I'll tell you, PSA, hands down, they far and exceeded their expected delivery date of the card. I don't have the card just yet, but from the expected due date, it was due 3 or 4 days earlier than I had expected. But worst case scenario, this card comes back authentic with the awful title of altered also on the flip. And so this is by far the worst, in my opinion, possible result of this SGC to SGC to PSA crossover. I had hoped it was going to come back a number. It did not. I would have loved just an authentic label on it, but this is the state of the card now. I, as a collector, I am of course a bigger SGC fan than a PSA fan. I much prefer this card in an authentic miscut label than this authentic altered. Because in my opinion, it's not altered. Now, this could also, in a way, show some difference in grading. I'm not going to use the word knowledge here in a negative way because I am not a professional grader. I am an armchair quarterback when it comes to grading. But when you think about the expertise of the grader who saw this card at SGC, they may have seen it and said, that's a miscut. Whereas the grader at PSA may have seen this card and said the only way that that card has the jagged top and bottom edges is from an alteration, when in reality it's not really an alteration. Or maybe the SGC guy was wrong, or woman, and the PSA person is absolutely correct. No one knows what happened in the past. All I know is this card looks like a miscut to me, but unfortunately PSA said it's now altered. You know what would be great though? If I could see the PSA grading notes, but because this card came back as a no grade, I am not eligible to review and see the grading notes. So if I had any bone to pick with PSA about this card, it's that single fact. I would love to know why. Why did this card come back as altered when it doesn't look like it's altered? So what do I do with the card now? Do I resend it back to SGC? Do I keep it in a PSA flip? You'll notice up there it's missing from my display. My Bill O'Hara is in an authentic altered PSA slab as well. I'd hate to invest even more money into this card to get it back into an SGC grade or SGC slab, but I just hate the fact that it's in an authentic altered flip now, because when you look at the other recent authentic altered PSA Ray Dimmitt that sold, you can really see right above his head a yellow color added. At least in my perspective, or from my opinion, that card actually looks altered. But now here's the silver lining. When you look up that sale of the authentic altered Ray Dimmitt, that sold in September of 2024 for over $6,000. That was also the very first sale of an authentic altered PSA Ray Dimmitt since 2021. I am only into this SGC miscut card. My purchase price, of course, was $3.2K. I spent another $350 with shipping to get it graded, so I'm really only into it for, $3.6 thousand to be on the modest side here. So maybe at the end of the day, because it's now in a PSA flip, it's going to sell for more than $3.6 thousand. I don't know, but I'm not going to sell it. So I don't know if it really matters at the end of the day. I just know that I hate the fact that it came back in an altered flip, because in my opinion, the card is not altered. But this is the game we play when it comes to grading. We send off these cards with the best intentions. Sometimes it works out in our favor. Other times it does not. But that is the beauty of collecting. We lick our wounds and we move on to the very next card.